Welcome back to the annual report. Kenneth B. Inch here, and this is where we go through each artist catalog, album by album, era by era. Let's get into it. So, this is the album. We're coming off Dancing Machine, the success of that, and Get It Together. And now it's time for Michael's solo album, which is titled Forever Michael. This is his final solo album on Motown before leaving the label and beginning the next chapter of his career that we all know and love. Um, this is the beginning of the end. This is the album that sent Michael packing. And when you look back, having the full historical context, and you listen to this album and you listen to the album that's next, you can understand why and what happened. And this is something that's been building over years, by the way, and Motown would not listen. So uh, it's pretty evident that Michael kept growing. He kept evolving. His voice kept changing. His confidence continued to grow, and his instincts, as a singer, were becoming more and more um, established, refined, et cetera, et cetera. But with all of that, the material, the songs themselves, they did not keep up. And as we kind of go through this journey, we think about the different sort of things that Michael was adding vocally to his singing. You can hear that he wanted to explore and utilize those tools in different ways, but he wasn't gonna get a chance with this stuff. So, and that is the issue that we have with Forever Michael. It isn't really a bad album. In fact, there really isn't one bad song on here that I find, except one. And I'll clearly let you know what that is. But outside of that, most of the other ones are pretty good. I think well, we'll get into that when we get to the album background. But I think that in what 75 is when this album dropped. Michael at 16, as crazy as it sounds, he's no longer a child star. In physical nature, as well as like in the material that he wanted to do. And the soprano that he had is now gone. He's a tenor, and he wanted to utilize it. So, I think I wonder what could have been if Motown would have listened in the same way that they did with Stevie. But either way, let's go ahead and get into the album background, and then we get into it song by song. So, released in January of 1975, Forever Michael will become Michael Jackson's final solo album for Motown. By this point, he was no longer that kid that's astonishing audiences with his incredible vocal performances that we've documented since we've been doing this. Uh, he's 16, 17 years old. His voice has changed, is deeper, is smoother, and he has the control and the sound that we know of Michael Jackson. When you listen to it, and definitely when you listen to some of the other stuff, you're like, oh my God, that's Michael. That's the one that we know. And that was one of the first things that I noticed. Like, the tenor is here. That little boy that we knew, he's out of here. So I think vocally, just wonder what else Michael could have done if given the the freedom to do so. But outside of that, I think musically the musicianship is fine. I think the arrangements are good. The production, for the most part, is clean. It doesn't sound unfinished or anything like that. But I think that's kind of the problem. Like, we know the formula, and it's pretty predictable. And over time, people just kind of, probably get bored with the same sort of musical sounds over and over again. And, with Motown, they had a formula and they stuck to it. They had a songwriting style and they stuck to it. They had a production style and they stuck to it. And with that formula, they were extremely successful and created a ton of classics and a ton of classes that came with this group and from Michael's solo albums. It's just the music is changing. And funk is here, disco is right around the corner. If it's not there in certain pockets of the music, and Michael was changing too. So all these things he's hearing around him, you know, in mainstream and probably underground, and he's like having these ideas, and you can kind of, I don't know if you can hear it on the album, but it's evident that he's ready to go. But and I think that's where the material kind of holds him back. But at this point, safe songs, they're not going to cut it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I think with a couple of cuts like One Day in Your Life, You Are There, and We're Almost There, it kind of gives us flashes of like the Michael that would turn into this. Well, I wouldn't even say those songs do that, honestly. Now that I think about it. Um, nah, I don't know. I think it just shows us that he's talented. But anyway, let's go ahead and jump into it, man. Track by track, as we always do. Um, we're going to start with side one of my listening notes is We Are Almost There. We're Almost There, which is a really good opening for this album. The very first few seconds you hear the groove is like right there. It's a nice mid-tempo sort of pocket. It's not trying to do too much. It's nice. It's a very confident arrangement that they had going on, and it really grabbed my attention. I love the snare on here. Michael sounds different. I was talking about earlier, the soprano voice is gone. I think there's nothing but tenor on this album, and there's a confidence that comes with it as well. He just couldn't really get a chance to open up with some of these songs and stuff. Maybe on one song I really did like that. I felt like he did some things, but outside of that, you go from a kid that was like mind blowing when you first heard him way back in the late '60s to somebody who's just singing songs. That's not Michael. And that was it. I do love the production on here, and I will say that I like if you listen to the first couple of opening lines, you'll hear like a song that I believe was sampled on a hip hop track. I'm not gonna be sample snitching, and I didn't even bother to look it up. But but yeah, one of my favorite songs on the album. Next on is track two. Here you have Take Me Back, which I like. I like this song, and you know, they didn't try to like raise the energy all that much. I think it just kind of, you know, glides or slides right into its smooth groove that it has. And, you know, I think that worked. I think that was a good choice. Um, so yeah, so that was Take Me Back. Well, no, that was yeah, that was Take Me Back. Um, hmm. Yeah, no, this is another track on here that I like. I thought there was something else that I had, but nah, that's it. So next you have One Day in My Life, which I really like this song, and I really like his vocal performance on this song. I really like how, like, I think it's the first verse, how he at the end of that verse or telling of that verse or coming out of that verse, he kind of builds up into the chorus and he does it really, really, really well, and it adds a lot to that song, and it makes it stand out in the way that the opening track of the album does. So I think this is a really, really good song. Michael shows a lot of patience, and his delivery, his vocal performance was really, really on point. And he settled in, man. He trusted everything that was going on here, and it worked. I loved it. I was definitely a fan of this song. And it was one of the other ones that definitely stood out to me as well. Cinderella Stay a While, weird title, but as a song, it works. Um, it's more of a filler piece, and it doesn't really do a lot. I think the melody is enjoyable. I think Michael sings it well because that's what he does. But outside of a memorable hook, I think you know, that's it. But yeah, yeah, we're gonna move on, man. But not a bad song. We've Got Forever is another one that I like on this album. I will say that with this album, it stays very consistent in its identity. And this song kind of provides another example of that. It's an easy listen to with this song. The arrangement is smooth. Michael vocally is good as well. Um, but again, we're sticking to a formula that just gives us okay songs and sometimes good to great songs. But with this album, I'm still not at a point where I was blown away in the same way that I was with Get It Together, which is crazy to me. But nevertheless, not a bad song. And now we move over to side two. So my listen notes from side two is just a little bit of you. And this song, the more I listen to it, it sounds like something you would hear at like a fish fry or something that would be played on a blues radio station, which is a bit of a compliment. It shows the diversity of Michael Jackson able to kind of put a little blues touch on a record that really isn't kind of meant for blues, but it kind of gives me that feeling with the grit, the bounce. It's kind of rooted in the soul music that I like. So what I noticed on this album is no attempts to really do pop songs. It's like we're just gonna do songs and that's it. While I'm here, I also think is worth mentioning that Hal Davis, who was responsible for the turnaround with the Jackson Five, is kind of here and isn't. Holland, Holland, one of the Eddie Holland, I think, wrote a couple of songs on here, and they were going through a strike as a trio, but yet here he is writing songs for Motown. So I don't know what was up with that, but maybe I have to look into that story. And sounds like it might be really, really interesting. But yeah, with this one, he doesn't oversing anything, man. He's just kind of right in the groove, and that's it. But again, that's the problem. That's it. You Are There is another one, and over time, there are songs that kind of start to work for me that like keeps me coming back. I think this is one of my favorite records on here, um, because it really leaves like an emotional impression on me, and that's what I like it. The arrangement of it isn't really anything different. I think that Michael isn't really doing anything flashy, but I think just as a partnership, as a unit, uh, they function really, really well together, and that's why I like that one. Dapper Dan is the one I mentioned earlier. We can get this joint all the way up out of here. I don't know what they were trying to do with this song. If I had to guess, it was like Michael. I don't know. It was he had the Rock and Robin. Was this their futile attempt to recreate that? My God, this song was skippable. After that, we have Dear Michael, which is the strangest record on the album because of the lyrics. I'm still trying to process it, but the song or like everything outside of that is really good. How Michael sings it, the chorus on it, the part at the end where he's just kind of riffing, all of that, all of that is really, really, really good. And I love listening to this song. And I just gotta try to ignore the lyrics. I don't think they're like creepy in any kind of way, but it's just like you're singing us. If they would have found something else to go with this, who knows what they would have had on their hands. But Michael definitely did his thing on this one, and as I continue to get over that, this is definitely one that's becoming one of my favorites. Then you have I'll Come Home to You, and as a closer, I'll Come Home to You. Well, not so fast, my friend, because that's not going to happen because he's actually going to leave Motown. But it works. It's a fine closer. Just bookends the album, but I think that is the issue. It's just kind of like we're at the end and we're just gonna put something on here and get out of here. So that is it for that one. Which brings us to our soundtrack for today, and that is One Day in Your Life. Um, it's the one song that I keep coming back to, mainly because I just really, really loved how Michael sung on this record. I really, really love how he ended the first verse and went into the chorus. And I think it's a beautiful record that has the touch and tenderness that Michael Jackson has. So without further ado, let's put the needle on the track.
What I'm gonna do next is sing my latest song. It's my favorite song. Another one of my favorites. I like ballads because you get a chance to really hear what's going on. Everything is soft and slow. And you get a chance to understand the lyrics. Here we go. One day in your life, do you remember a place? Someone touching your face. Do you come back in your love around you? One day in your life, do you remember the love you found here? You remember me somehow, though you don't need me now. I will sing in your heart, and when things are apart, you'll remember one day in your life, when you find that you're always waiting for the love we used to share. Just call my name and I'll be there. No, 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 no. Yeah. You remember me somehow, though you don't need me now. I was in your heart, and when things fall apart, you'll remember one day in your life, when you find that you're always waiting for the love we used to share. Just call my
What a beautiful song by Michael Jackson. That You'll Need Me Somehow. That part is my favorite part. It gets me every time. It's just why I love this song so much. And I think he sung it so beautifully. And that was live and he nailed damn near every note. Which is why, he's one of the GOATs, man. So um yeah, off the Forever Michael album, the last album that he did with Motown before we get the off the wall masterpiece. And it's one of the standout tracks from that album, which is why I made it the soundtrack for today. In closing, let's get into it, man. So a very flat, boring album that didn't do much at all culturally um is probably an album you've never heard of. And when you listen to this album, you understand why Michael Jackson was like, I'm out of here. And there were some other issues that was going on as well, because the Jackson 5 had their hit, so they couldn't really get out and promo you know the album itself. But out of all of the three singles that they released, We're Almost There, Just a Little Bit of You, and One Day of Your Life, like none of them really stuck and took off. And that was pretty much it. So he just, I think he got back to the top 40, but outside of that, nah, probably you don't even probably hear any of these songs. Um, so yeah, yeah. So I understand, and this would be it, the death or the nail in the coffin for Motown. Um, and we'll be moving on, which I completely understand. Because imagine if he stayed with Motown, my God, if this was what they were doing. So, but yeah, Michael was a different singer. Everything was different for him. So his performances were great. We just saw one, and but the material didn't keep up with it. So, and music was changing. Michael changed, and yeah, man. So, nevertheless, it was a dud of an album. So, let's get into the scorecards real quick. So, vocals, I mean, Michael was good. Michael, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Production, 6 out of 10. I don't think it was bad production outside of that one song I didn't like. But even still, I don't think the production was bad. I just think it was a bad song. Songwriting, 5 out of 10. I just felt like, these are just very average songs. I don't think they really did much. Cohesion, same thing. It's just like you can probably shuffle these songs up and come up with something that sounds just as cohesive as this. Cultural impact, 2 out of 10. Like it didn't do nothing. Nothing. So it's not one. Maybe the first track is the one that I could play that may sound familiar, but that's it. And 3 out of 10, no, it's not a lot of replay value here at all. So we had a 28 out of 60. So it's the second tier. I think it's just a couple of joints that's worth you listening to. But outside of that, nah, I think you're good. So, nevertheless, what is up next, which I'm sure people are excited for, is we have Off the Wall. But before we get to that, we have to do Moving Violation, everybody, because Forever Michael and Moving Violation, they go hand in hand. And to complete the story, we need to tell the story of Moving Violation. So I'll see you back for that one. I'm out. Peace.